You think I'm stealing? Evelyn's voice cut through the murmurs of onlookers, sharp and steady, despite the weight pressing down on her chest. Gregory Henshaw, the store manager, stood a few feet away, his arms crossed and his expression smug. Behind him loomed Carl Riggs, the security guard whose bulk seemed designed to intimidate. Evelyn had been reaching for organic honey when Gregory approached her, his tone dripping with disdain. "Someone saw you putting items in your bag without paying," he said, ignoring her protests. Before she could respond, Carl stepped forward, grabbing her designer tote without hesitation. The sound of her belongings spilling onto the floor echoed through the aisle, receipts fluttering like confetti, her wallet skidding across the polished tiles. "Classy purse for someone who can't afford groceries," a woman muttered under her breath, earning nods from others nearby. Evelyn clenched her fists, but forced herself to stay composed. She wasn't just shopping, she was preparing for a charity gala that evening, a prestigious event meant to uplift underserved communities. Now, surrounded by whispers and judgmental stares, she felt stripped bare. Gregory gestured toward Carl. "Check it, make sure nothing else is missing." Evelyn's jaw tightened as Carl rifled through her personal items, his hands rough against her carefully chosen accessories. "This isn't over," Evelyn finally said, her voice low but laced with steel. Gregory smirked, clearly unimpressed, but what he didn't know was about to change everything for both of them. "Look at this mess," Evelyn shot back, her eyes locking onto Gregory's. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Her question hung in the air unanswered. Instead, Gregory leaned closer, his arrogance radiating off him like heat. "I don't care if you're the mayor," he replied, his tone dismissive. "You're leaving now, or I'll call the cops." He glanced at Carl, who nodded eagerly, already fingering his radio. The threat should have shaken her, but instead, Evelyn straightened, her posture regal even amidst the chaos. "Fine," she said coolly. "But before I go, let me tell you something. That building next door, the one housing your corporate headquarters, it belongs to me." For the first time, Gregory faltered. His smirk wavered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Evelyn didn't wait for him to recover. She turned on her heel, scooping up her scattered belongings as quickly as possible. Every movement burned with purpose, every glance searing with quiet defiance. As she walked toward the exit, she heard Gregory mutter something to Carl, though his words were lost in the hum of chatter around them. What mattered now wasn't what they thought, it was what they didn't know. They'd underestimated her, assumed she was powerless because of the color of her skin, and that mistake would cost them dearly. She paused at the doorway, glancing back once more. "Enjoy your little victory while it lasts," she said softly, though only she could hear the venom beneath the calm exterior. Then, stepping outside, she pulled out her phone, scrolling until she found the number she needed. Evelyn slid into her car, slamming the door shut behind her. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed the number, but her voice remained steady when the line connected. "Hey, it's Evelyn. We need to talk. Meet me at Gourmet Haven first thing tomorrow morning." On the other end, Marcus Lane, the fiery investigative journalist known for exposing corruption, hesitated for a moment before responding. "What's going on?" he asked, curiosity evident in his tone. "I'll explain everything then," Evelyn replied cryptically. "Just trust me. This story has teeth." She ended the call before he could press further, leaning back against the seat as her mind raced. Victor Langston's name kept surfacing in her thoughts. She'd recognized it earlier, during a brief review of property documents related to Gourmet Haven. Victor, the ruthless billionaire infamous for exploiting minority communities, owned the chain. Evelyn knew exactly how deep the rot went, and tomorrow she intended to rip it all out into the open. But for now, she sat in silence, replaying the day's events in her head. The humiliation, the betrayal, the simmering anger, all of it fueled her resolve. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about revenge, it would be about justice. And Evelyn Brooks never backed down from a fight. Gregory Henshaw leaned back in his recliner, a smug grin plastered across his face as he recounted the day's events to his wife. She thought she could waltz into my store and steal without consequences, he said, puffing out his chest, but I showed her who's boss. His wife glanced up from her phone, scrolling through social media feeds, flooded with outrage over the incident. Are you sure this is going to blow over? She asked hesitantly. People are calling you racist online. Racist? Me? Gregory scoffed, brushing off her concern. It's not my fault she got caught red-handed. Let them talk. All publicity is good publicity, right? But as the hours passed, the backlash only grew louder. Videos of Evelyn being humiliated spread like wildfire, accompanied by hashtags like Justice for Evelyn and End Retail Racism. Customers began boycotting Gourmet Haven, leaving scathing reviews about the store's toxic environment. Local activists even organized protests outside its doors. Meanwhile, Evelyn watched the tide turn from afar. She didn't need to lift a finger. Social media had done the work for her. Still, she knew Gregory's downfall was just the beginning. The real enemy remained hidden, pulling strings behind the scenes. The next morning, Evelyn walked into her office building, bracing herself for what awaited her. Word of the incident had already reached her colleagues, and their reactions were far from supportive. As she settled into her chair, Diane Harper approached her desk, feigning concern. I heard about what happened, Diane said, her tone dripping with insincerity. Honestly, Evelyn, maybe if you dressed less flashy, people wouldn't jump to conclusions. Evelyn froze, her fingers gripping the edge of her desk. Excuse me, she replied, her voice dangerously calm. Diane shrugged, pretending innocence. I'm just saying, it sends the wrong message. You know how some people can be. The comment stung more than Evelyn cared to admit. Diane wasn't just any colleague. She'd been someone Evelyn considered a friend. Now, it seemed, even those closest to her were willing to throw her under the bus rather than stand beside her. Later that day, during a board meeting, Evelyn noticed subtle shifts in behavior. Her ideas were dismissed more quickly than usual, her contributions met with condescending nods or outright silence. It became clear the incident at Gourmet Haven had given others an excuse to doubt her competence, to question whether she truly belonged in the room. Evelyn swallowed her frustration, vowing not to let their biases break her spirit. But deep down, the isolation gnawed at her resolve. This wasn't just about one bad day. It was about years of systemic prejudice masquerading as casual indifference. That evening, Evelyn returned home and dove headfirst into research. She couldn't shake the feeling that Gregory was merely a pawn in a much larger game. After hours of digging through property records and corporate filings, she uncovered something chilling. Gourmet Haven wasn't independently owned. It was part of a sprawling chain controlled by none other than Victor Langston. Victor Langston, a name synonymous with wealth and ruthlessness, had built his empire on the backs of marginalized communities. From predatory lending practices to illegal rent hikes targeting low-income tenants, his business model thrived on exploitation. Worse still, Evelyn realized Victor's reach extended far beyond retail stores. He owned countless properties across the city, including several near-minority-owned businesses that had mysteriously shut down after sudden rent spikes. Her blood boiled as she pieced together the puzzle. This wasn't just racism. It was institutionalized greed, cloaked in systemic oppression. And now, Victor was sponsoring her charity gala, basking in the illusion of philanthropy while perpetuating the very inequalities she sought to dismantle. Determined to expose him, Evelyn reached out to Marcus Lane again. I found something big, she told him over the phone. Bigger than Gregory, bigger than Gourmet Haven. Meet me tomorrow. We'll bring him down together. The following day, Evelyn arranged a private meeting with Victor under the guise of discussing gala logistics. Sitting across from him in his opulent office, she studied his demeanor, calm, confident, untouchable. "You've been busy," Victor said, leaning back in his leather chair. "I heard about your little run-in at Gourmet Haven. Quite the spectacle." Evelyn smiled thinly. "Funny you mention that. I've also been doing some digging. Turns out I own a few properties near yours. Imagine my surprise when I discovered they're all connected." Victor chuckled, unfazed. "Sweetheart, I've been in this game for decades. People have tried to take me down before. You won't be the first, and you certainly won't be the last." His arrogance fueled her determination. "We'll see," she replied coolly, standing to leave. As she exited the office, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt. Was she biting off more than she could chew? Marcus wasted no time diving into Victor's operations. Within days, he unearthed evidence so damning it made Evelyn's blood run cold. Audio recordings revealed Victor bribing city officials to shut down competing minority-owned businesses near Gourmet Haven locations. Documents exposed illegal rent hikes, forcing black tenants out of their homes, leaving entire neighborhoods decimated. "This isn't just unethical, it's criminal," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table to Evelyn. "And it's everywhere. He's been doing this for years, hiding behind shell companies and fake charities." Evelyn's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages, each revelation hitting harder than the last. She thought back to the families displaced, the dreams crushed, the lives destroyed, all because of one man's greed. But amidst the anger came clarity. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person Victor had hurt, every community he'd exploited. Together, Evelyn and Marcus devised a plan to expose him, knowing full well the risks involved. As they strategized late into the night, Evelyn felt a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since the incident, she wasn't fighting alone. Just as Evelyn began to feel overwhelmed, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hesitant, she answered. "Hello? Ms. Brooks?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Jasmine Reed. I saw what you're doing, and I want to help." Jasmine explained how Victor's company had evicted her family years ago, leaving them homeless. Since then, she'd been quietly gathering testimonies from others, victimized by his schemes. "There are dozens of us," Jasmine continued. "We're ready to speak out." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes as she listened. For weeks, she'd carried the weight of this fight alone, unsure if anyone would join her. Now, here was Jasmine, offering not just support but proof of Victor's crimes on a scale Evelyn hadn't imagined. "Thank you," Evelyn said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't know how much this means." Together, they agreed to meet the next day, preparing to unleash a storm that would shake Victor Langston's empire to its core. Evelyn stepped out of her car, flanked by Marcus Lane and a live news crew. Cameras rolled as she approached Gourmet Haven, her expression unreadable, but her strides confident. Gregory stood near the entrance, arms crossed, smirking as if he already knew how this would end. "You've got some nerve showing up here," Gregory called out, his voice laced with mockery. "What's next? You gonna cry on camera too?" Evelyn stopped just a few feet away, her eyes locking onto his. "No," she replied coolly. "I'm here to demand an apology, for me and for every person you've humiliated because of the color of their skin." Gregory laughed, glancing at the growing crowd around them. "You think anyone cares about your little stunt? This is ridiculous." But Evelyn didn't flinch. She turned to face the cameras, addressing the audience directly. "This isn't just about me," she said, her voice steady yet charged with emotion. "It's about every black woman, every minority who's been treated like they don't belong in spaces simply because of who they are. And today, we're ending that narrative. Her words ignited murmurs among the spectators, some nodding in agreement, while others whispered furiously into their phones. Gregory shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tide beginning to turn against him. Before he could respond, Marcus stepped forward, holding up a tablet. "Actually, Gregory," Marcus interjected, his tone sharp, "there's something everyone needs to hear." Marcus tapped the screen, and suddenly Victor Langston's voice filled the air, cold, calculating, and damning. "They just shut down those minority-owned shops near Gourmet Haven. Pay off whoever you need to. I don't care how much it costs." The recording cut off abruptly, leaving silence in its wake. The crowd gasped collectively, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Evelyn watched as Gregory's smirk faltered, replaced by panic. He glanced back at the store, searching for support from staff or customers, but found none. "That's Victor Langston," Marcus announced, raising his voice so the entire crowd could hear. "He's not just the owner of Gourmet Haven, he's behind illegal rent hikes, bribery schemes, and decades of systemic exploitation targeting black communities." Evelyn stepped closer to Gregory, her gaze piercing. "So tell me again, Gregory, why exactly I shouldn't be here?" she challenged me. "Or were you just following orders from someone even worse than you?" Gregory opened his mouth to retort, but no words came out. Instead, he took a step back, visibly shaken. For the first time, he looked uncertain, vulnerable, and utterly exposed. As the cameras captured every moment, Evelyn felt a surge of vindication. But she knew this was only the beginning. Victor himself was still out there, waiting to strike back. Just as Evelyn began to feel a flicker of triumph, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Out stepped Victor Langston, his presence commanding attention immediately. His tailored suit and polished demeanor screamed authority, but his eyes burned with fury. "Evelyn," Victor greeted her, his tone deceptively calm. "I see you've decided to make a spectacle of yourself." Evelyn straightened, refusing to let him intimidate her. "Not a spectacle, Victor. Justice." Victor chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Justice, please? You're throwing tantrums over petty grievances. Do you really think anyone will believe you over me?" His words struck a nerve. Evelyn hesitated, doubt creeping into her mind. Had she overplayed her hand? Was this all too reckless? She glanced at Marcus, then at the crowd, searching for reassurance, but Victor's confidence was unshakable. For a brief moment she wondered if she'd underestimated him. If everything she'd worked for was about to crumble under the weight of his influence. But before she could dwell on it further, chaos erupted behind Victor. Dozens of people surged forward, led by Jasmine Reed, each carrying signs that read, "Victor stole our homes" and "Stop predatory practices." Their voices rose in unison, chanting slogans that echoed through the streets. Jasmine locked eyes with Evelyn, giving her a small nod before turning to address the cameras. "We're here to expose the truth about Victor Langston," she declared, her voice trembling but resolute. "He evicted us, destroyed our businesses, and left us with nothing, all for profit." As the former tenants shared their stories, another bombshell dropped. A whistleblower within Victor's company released a trove of emails detailing years of fraudulent activity, falsified documents, illegal contracts, and evidence of widespread corruption. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags like #IsExposeVictor trending instantly. Victor's composure cracked. He barked orders at his assistant, who frantically tried to mitigate the damage, but it was too late. The crowd turned hostile, shouting accusations and jeering at him. Evelyn watched as the momentum shifted decisively in her favor. Her heart swelled with gratitude, not just for Jasmine and the tenants, but for the countless others who had suffered silently until now. Together, they were dismantling the walls of oppression brick by brick, and yet she wasn't finished. Not yet. Victor lunged toward Evelyn, his face red with rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he spat. "You'll regret this." Evelyn met his glare head-on, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Actually, Victor," she said, savoring the moment, "there's one more thing you should know." She paused, letting the tension build before delivering the final blow. "I recently acquired controlling shares in your parent company. Effective immediately, you're fired." The crowd erupted into cheers, cameras flashing wildly as Victor staggered backward, stunned. For once, he was speechless, his empire crumbling around him. Evelyn turned to the cameras, her voice ringing clear and strong. "This isn't just my victory, it's ours. It belongs to every person who's ever been told they don't belong. Today, we take back what's rightfully ours." As Victor was escorted away by security, Evelyn allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The battle wasn't over. She knew racism wouldn't vanish overnight. But this was a start, a powerful, undeniable step toward change. Evelyn stood in the boardroom of Gourmet Haven's headquarters, her presence commanding respect. Around the table sat executives and stakeholders, some eager to align with her vision, others wary of the sweeping changes she proposed. But Evelyn wasn't there to negotiate. She was there to lead. "Starting today," she began, her voice steady but resolute, "this company will operate under new principles: fairness, transparency, and accountability. We're implementing fair hiring practices, affordable pricing for underserved communities, and partnerships with minority-owned businesses." The room buzzed with murmurs, a mix of admiration and apprehension. Evelyn ignored the skepticism, focusing instead on the opportunities ahead. She had already accepted Gregory's resignation, a quiet but symbolic victory, and noted Diane, Harper's conspicuous absence. Word was that Diane had tried reaching out multiple times, but Evelyn hadn't responded yet. Forgiveness would take time. As she outlined her plans, Evelyn felt a sense of purpose unlike anything she'd experienced before. This wasn't just about punishing those who'd wronged her. It was about creating lasting change. For every person who'd been humiliated, evicted, or exploited, she vowed to build a better future, one decision at a time. But even as she celebrated these initial victories, Evelyn knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The system was entrenched, resistant to change, and while Victor's arrest marked a significant milestone, it was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. That evening, Evelyn sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through congratulatory messages from friends, colleagues, and strangers alike. The day's events replayed in her mind like a film reel, each moment etched with triumph and caution. Her phone buzzed, pulling her attention away. A courier had delivered an envelope addressed simply to Ms. Brooks. Inside was a single sheet of paper, accompanied by grainy photographs. Evelyn's breath caught as she recognized Victor shaking hands with prominent politicians, including several attending her charity gala later that night. The note read, "Victor isn't the only one profiting from systemic racism. The roots run deeper than you think." Evelyn clenched the letter tightly, her earlier confidence faltering. It was a stark reminder that dismantling racism required more than exposing one corrupt billionaire. It demanded confronting complicity at every level of society. These weren't isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a pervasive disease. For a moment, doubt crept in. Could she truly make a difference against such deeply embedded systems? Then she remembered Jasmine, Marcus, and the countless others who had joined her fight. Alone, she might fail. Together, they could spark real change. With renewed determination, Evelyn tucked the letter into her desk drawer. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she had a gala to host. The charity gala buzzed with energy, guests mingling beneath glittering chandeliers. Evelyn stepped onto the stage, adjusting the microphone as hushed whispers gave way to silence. All eyes were on her, waiting to hear what she would say. "Tonight," she began, her voice carrying across the elegant hall, "we honor resilience, the courage to stand up, speak out, and demand justice. But let me be clear, this isn't just my fight, it's ours." She paused, scanning the crowd. Among them were activists, philanthropists, and yes, some of the very politicians implicated in the anonymous letter. Evelyn chose her next words. Carefully, systemic racism thrives because we allow it to thrive, not always through malice, but often through indifference. Real change starts with us, with holding ourselves accountable, supporting grassroots movements, and amplifying marginalized voices. Applause erupted, growing louder as Evelyn continued. "We can't dismantle centuries of oppression overnight, but together we can chip away at the foundations until they crumble." When she finished speaking, the room erupted into a standing ovation. Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, not from pride, but from hope. Hope that her words will inspire action, not just applause. Hope that this movement will continue long after the gala ends. Gregory's resignation made headlines the next morning, his name forever tied to disgrace. Former colleagues distanced themselves, eager to escape association with his toxic legacy. As for Diane, she cornered Evelyn outside the gala, her expression desperate. "I'm sorry," Diane stammered, wringing her hands. "I didn't mean what I said. I was scared, and I shouldn't have doubted you." Evelyn studied her former friend, searching for sincerity. "Words matter, Diane," she replied evenly. "Actions matter more." Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." While Evelyn accepted her apology, she couldn't ignore the scars left behind, the fractured trust, the painful reminders of betrayal. Still, she understood that redemption wasn't impossible. It required effort, accountability, and time. As Evelyn reflected on the past weeks, she realized the journey was far from over. Racism wasn't confined to boardrooms or grocery aisles. It permeated every facet of life, requiring constant vigilance and collective action. "This isn't just about me," she thought, gazing out her window at the city skyline. "It's about all of us." To anyone watching or reading her story, Evelyn offered a simple message. Your voice matters. Your actions matter. Whether it's calling out injustice, supporting marginalized communities, or educating yourself and others, every step counts. Together, we can create a world where no one is judged by the color of their skin. And with that, Evelyn turned back to her work, ready to face whatever came next. Because the fight for justice never truly ends. It evolves, grows, and inspires others to join along the way. Evelyn's story may have ended, but yours is just beginning. Have you ever faced discrimination like she did? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your voice could inspire others to keep fighting for justice. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with friends to spread awareness about systemic racism and the power of resilience. And don't stop here. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, resistance, and triumph over injustice. Together, we can shine a light on these critical issues and work toward meaningful change. Real progress starts with conversations, and your participation matters. So let us know. What steps will you take today to challenge inequality in your community? Let's turn inspiration into action, one story at a time.